The Great Hall of Nexus Prime stretched higher than most mountains. Crystal walls caught the light from 3 suns and threw rainbows across the floor. Representatives from 12 different worlds sat in a circle, each one different from the others. Ambassador Zethkari stood up from his seat. His blue skin shimmered as he moved, and his 4 arms gestured smoothly. The Dominion had ruled half the galaxy for 1,000 years. When Zethkari spoke, others listened. "My fellow council members," he began, his voice echoing through the hall. "We are here to discuss the humans." A ripple of laughter went through the room. The Vorthan War Commander's scales rattled with amusement. The ethereal collective made musical sounds that meant they found something funny. Even the normally serious representatives from the Mining Guild chuckled. Carrie held up one of his hands. The room grew quiet. "I know this seems amusing, but we must follow proper procedure. Every new species gets a hearing." He touched a control panel, and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Then the image changed to show human cities, human ships, and humans themselves. "This is Earth," Zethkari said, "home to approximately 8 billion humans. They achieved faster than light travel 97 years ago. Their technology is—" He paused, as if searching for the right word. "Basic." The hologram showed a human spaceship. It looked rough and ugly compared to the smooth, elegant vessels the council members were used to. Metal plates were welded together in obvious patches. Engines stuck out at strange angles. Everything about it screamed primitive. "Their largest ship is barely the size of our smallest transport," Zethkari continued. "They use chemical rockets for short-range flight, nuclear reactors for power, kinetic weapons that fire metal slugs. It is like watching children play with sticks and stones." The representative from the Lumina spoke next. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "What troubles us most is their behavior. They still fight wars against each other, on their own planet. This is disturbing." More murmurs went around the room. War between members of the same species had not happened in the civilized galaxy for thousands of years. It was considered a sign of mental illness or genetic defect. The ethereal collective's harmonics filled the air. Their words came not as sounds, but as thoughts shared directly into everyone's mind. "We have studied their broadcasts. Their entertainment shows violence. Their news reports death and conflict. Their children play games involving combat. This species has not evolved beyond its animal nature." Zethkari nodded. "Our psychologists agree. Humans show all the warning signs of an unstable species. They cannot even achieve peace on their home world. How can we trust them in galactic civilization?" The war commander from the Vorthan Empire stood up. His massive frame towered over everyone else. Battle scars covered his hide, earned in the ancient wars before the galaxy found peace. "I have reviewed their military tactics," he growled. "Wasteful, inefficient. They throw lives away like garbage. They destroy resources instead of capturing them. They fight without honor or wisdom." He gestured at the hologram, which now showed footage from human wars. Explosions lit up cities. Soldiers charged through mud and fire. Vehicles burned in the desert. "Look at this madness," the war commander continued. "They drop bombs on their own planet. They poison their own air and water to win battles. What civilized species would do such things?" The representative from the trading consortium leaned forward. His mechanical voice buzzed through speakers. "Their economic system is equally primitive. They still use physical currency on some worlds. They argue over resource distribution while their people starve. They have not learned to share efficiently. But they are intelligent," said the ambassador from the research union. Her large eyes reflected the light as she spoke carefully. "Their science, while crude, shows promise. They discovered quantum mechanics independently. They built computers without outside help. Perhaps with guidance. Zefkari shook his head. Intelligence without wisdom is dangerous. Smart children with weapons are still children with weapons. The hologram changed again, showing human colonies on distant worlds. Small outposts struggled to survive on harsh planets. Mining operations dug into asteroids with machines that looked ready to fall apart. They have spread to 17 systems in less than a century, Zefkari said. But look at what they built. Temporary structures. Military outposts. They expand like a virus, taking what they need and moving on. The representative from the Builders Guild nodded sadly. Their architecture has no beauty, no harmony with nature. They carve their settlements into landscapes like wounds. They have no artistic vision, so what do we do with them? Asked the delegate from the peaceful worlds. They are here. They exist. We cannot ignore them. Zefkari had been waiting for this question. The Dominion proposes probationary status. Level 1 restrictions. They may trade with border worlds only. No access to advanced technology. No military partnerships. They must prove they can civilize themselves before we consider full membership. How long? Asked someone. 100 standard years minimum, Zefkari replied. Long enough for them to either grow up or destroy themselves. The voting began. Each species had one voice. The Dominion voted for probationary status. The Vorthan Empire agreed. The Ethereal Collective sang their approval. One by one, every member of the council voted the same way. When it was done, Zefkari stood up again. It is decided. Humanity will receive minimal membership rights. They may establish basic trade relationships. They may request emergency assistance. But they are banned from military service, restricted from advanced technology, and forbidden from expanding beyond their current territory without council approval. He paused, looking around the room. Perhaps in a century, they will have learned to live in peace. Perhaps they will develop beyond their violent nature. Until then, we will watch and wait. The meeting ended with the council members filing out of the Great Hall. Most of them were already thinking about other business. The human question was settled. A minor species would remain minor until they proved otherwise. None of them thought to ask what humans might think about this decision. None of them wondered if a species that had fought its way to the stars might have opinions about being told to stay quiet and behave. They had made their choice. Soon, they would learn that humans had choices too. 3 years passed slowly for humanity. The Council's restrictions bit deep into every aspect of human expansion. Trade routes that should have brought prosperity instead brought barely enough supplies to survive. Requests for defensive equipment were denied or delayed for months. Captain Maria Santos looked out at the ruins of New Geneva Colony through her ship's view screen. Smoke still rose from the settlement's remains. The attack had happened 2 days ago, but the fires were still burning. How many survivors? She asked her communication officer. 43,000 made it to the evacuation shelters, came the reply. We lost about 7,000. The rest are missing. Missing meant captured. Everyone knew what the Kithran hegemony did with prisoners. They were not kind captors. What did they take? Santos asked. Everything. All the food stores. Medical supplies. The fusion generators. Even stripped the metal from the buildings. The officer's voice was tight with anger. They left just enough shelter for the survivors to not freeze to death. Santos closed their eyes. New Geneva had been home to 50,000 humans. Families who had traveled across space to build something new. Children who had never seen Earth. Now their world was ash and empty buildings. Send a message to Earth, she ordered. Full report to the colonial office. Request immediate defensive support. A navigation officer looked up from his console. Captain, the last 3 requests for military aid were denied. The council said we need to handle our own defense. Send it anyway, Santos said firmly. The message traveled faster than light, reaching Earth in hours. From Earth, it went to Nexus Prime, where human diplomats presented it to the Galactic Council. Ambassador Jennifer Park stood before the same crystal hall where humanity's fate had been decided 3 years earlier. Honorable representatives, Park began, her voice steady despite her frustration. This is the 7th major attack on human colonies this year. The Kithran hegemony has destroyed 4 settlements completely. They have killed or captured over 30,000 of our people. Zeth Kari looked bored as he reviewed the report on his personal screen. The Kithran operate in contested space. Perhaps human colonies should be established in less dangerous regions. These are not contested systems, Park replied. New Geneva was 50 light-years inside recognized human territory. The Kithran are not defending themselves. They are raiding us. The Vorthan War commander shifted in his seat. If humans cannot defend their own colonies, perhaps they are not ready for interstellar expansion. Park's hands clenched at her sides, but her voice remained calm. We are requesting access to defensive technologies available to all council members. Shield generators, point defense systems, early warning networks. Level 1 probationary members do not have access to advanced defensive systems. The ethereal collective's harmonics filled the room. This restriction exists for good reason. What reason? Park asked. What possible reason could there be for preventing us from protecting our families? Zefkari finally looked up from his screen. The reason, Ambassador Park, is that your species has not demonstrated the wisdom to use such technology responsibly. Advanced weapons in the hands of a violent species could destabilize the entire galaxy. We are not asking for weapons, Park said. We are asking for shields. Sensors. For the right to protect our children. Defensive technology can easily become offensive, the delegate from the research union said softly. A shield generator can be overloaded to become a weapon. A sensor array can guide missiles. Your species' history shows a remarkable ability to turn any tool into an instrument of war. Meanwhile, in Kithran space, Admiral Korvash reviewed the latest raid reports with satisfaction. His officers stood at attention around the holographic display table in his flagship's command center. New Geneva yielded excellent results, reported his intelligence chief. Their defensive satellites were destroyed in the first minute. No organized resistance. The humans scattered like frightened animals. Korvash nodded approvingly. His species had evolved from pack hunters, and he understood prey behavior very well. Humans were definitely prey. What about their distress calls? Asked his tactical officer. Standard pattern, the intelligence chief replied. They call for help. Their government sends angry messages to the Galactic Council. The Council ignores them. Then we hit the next target. The tactical display showed human space as a scattering of small red dots. 17 systems, mostly agricultural worlds and mining operations. No major military installations. No fleet bases. It was almost insulting how easy they were to raid. The humans have no concept of proper warfare, Korvash mused. They build settlements without adequate defense. They spread themselves thin instead of concentrating their forces. They waste resources on civilians instead of military strength. His strategic advisor, a scarred veteran of many campaigns, leaned over the display. Sir, our intelligence suggests they are building up their fleet. More ships are being constructed at their shipyards. Korvash laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Let them build toys. Their largest ship is smaller than our escort vessels. Their weapons cannot penetrate modern armor. Their tactics are thousands of years out of date. He pointed at the display, where Earth glowed at the center of human space. Their home world has no orbital defense platforms worthy of the name. A few kinetic satellites. Some missile bases on their moon. It is pathetic. Should we prepare for a major assault? Asked the tactical officer. Not yet, Corvash replied. Let them suffer. Let them beg their precious council for help. When they are desperate enough, when their spirit is broken, then we will offer them a choice. Surrender and serve as our labor force, or watch their worlds burn. The Kithrin had used this strategy before. Break a species slowly. Raid their settlements. Capture their people. Make them feel helpless. Eventually, they would give up and accept slavery rather than extinction. Back on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Park made one final attempt to reach the Council's compassion. Please, she said, dropping diplomatic protocol. These are not numbers on a report. These are people, mothers, fathers, children who will never see another birthday because you will not let us protect them. The Lumina representative spoke gently. We understand your pain, Ambassador. But allowing premature access to advanced technology could create even greater suffering. Rules exist for good reasons. Your rules are watching my people die, Park said. Zethkari stood up, signaling the end of the session. The Council's decision stands. Humanity must demonstrate peaceful coexistence before receiving full membership privileges. Perhaps these attacks will encourage your species to pursue diplomatic solutions rather than military ones. As the council members filed out, Park remained standing at the speaker's podium. She thought about the messages waiting at her communication queue. More requests for help. More reports of attacks. More families torn apart while the galaxy's most powerful beings debated whether humans deserve to defend themselves. She thought about Captain Santos, still searching through the ruins of New Geneva for survivors. She thought about Admiral Corvash, probably planning his next raid at this very moment. She thought about the thousands of humans who would die, while the Council waited for humanity to become more civilized. What none of them knew was that humanity was becoming something else entirely. In shipyards across human space, new vessels were taking shape. Ships that looked primitive but carried secrets the galaxy had never seen. Plans were being made in rooms the Council would never find. The Galactic Council had decided to let humanity learn the hard way. Soon, they would discover that humanity's teachers had always been harder than any lesson the galaxy could offer. Admiral Corvash stood on the bridge of his flagship, the devastating Claw, and watched Earth grow larger on his main screen. The blue marble hung in space like a jewel, unaware that death was approaching. Fleet status report. He commanded. His tactical officer checked his displays. 200 vessels information, Admiral. 3 planet killers, 47 heavy cruisers, 60 destroyers, and 90 escort ships. All systems show green. We are ready for battle. Corvash nodded with satisfaction. The Kithrin 7th Fleet was one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. They had conquered 17 systems and broken the resistance of 6 different species. Today, they would add humanity to that list. Any response from the human fleet? He asked. 43 ships detected, sir. Mixed classes, but none larger than heavy cruiser equivalents by our standards. They are maintaining position around their orbital defense platforms. Corvash laughed, the sound echoing through the bridge. 43 ships. The humans were outnumbered almost 5 to 1, and their technology was centuries behind Kithrin standards. Open a communication channel, he ordered. Let us give them a chance to surrender gracefully. The communication officer nodded. Channel open, Admiral. Corvash straightened his massive frame and put on his most intimidating expression. Attention, primitive humans. I am Admiral Corvash of the Kithrin 7th Fleet. Your resistance to our expansion ends today. He paused, letting his words sink in. You have exactly one standard day to surrender your entire species unconditionally. Lay down your weapons. Abandon your colonies. Submit to Kithrin rule. Do this, and your deaths will be quick. The bridge crew waited in silence. Surely the humans would see reason. They had to understand how hopeless their situation was. The response came from a woman's voice, calm and professional. Admiral Corvash, this is Admiral Sarah Chun, commanding the United Earth Space Force. You have entered sovereign human space with hostile intent. You have 1 hour to withdraw your fleet beyond our territorial boundary. Any vessel remaining after that deadline will be considered an act of war. The bridge erupted in laughter. Even Corvash's usually serious tactical staff were chuckling. The human admiral thought she could give orders to them. She actually believed her tiny fleet could threaten the mighty Kithrin. Did she say 1 hour? Asked the tactical officer, wiping tears from his eyes. She did, Corvash replied, still grinning. The humans think they can dictate terms to us. How delightfully naive. He opened the channel again. Admiral Chun, let me explain something to you. We have 200 warships. You have 43. Our smallest escort vessel could destroy your largest ship. Our weapons can crack planets. Your orbital defenses are toys. The response came back immediately. Your mathematics are accurate, Admiral. Your conclusion is not. Corvash frowned. The human woman sounded far too confident. Perhaps she was mentally unstable. Combat stress could cause such delusions. Sir, his intelligence officer reported, we are detecting some unusual activity in the human fleet. Ships are changing position, but not into any recognized defensive formation. Let me see, Corvash ordered. The tactical display showed the human fleet spreading out in what looked like chaos. Some ships were diving below the system's orbital plane. Others were accelerating directly toward the Kithrin fleet. A few appeared to be retreating toward the outer planets. What are they doing? Asked his strategic advisor. Nothing that makes sense, Corvash replied. Their formation is completely broken. They have no mutual support. No overlapping fields of fire. It is as if they have never studied military tactics. The hour passed quickly. As the deadline approached, Corvash prepared to demonstrate Kithrin's superiority. His fleet would destroy half the human ships in the first salvo, and the rest would surrender immediately. All ships, prepare for combat, he ordered. Primary targets are the larger human vessels. Leave a few alive so they can carry news of our victory to the rest of their species. His weapon control officer reported ready status across the fleet. Energy cannons charged. Missile tubes loaded. Shield generators at maximum power. Commence attack, Corvash commanded. That was when Admiral Chun's voice came over the communication channel one final time. A single word that would haunt Kithrin nightmares for generations. Phoenix Protocol. The first sign that something was wrong came from the sensor stations. The human ships that had been advancing toward the Kithrin fleet suddenly became much harder to track. Electronic interference was spiking across all frequencies. What is happening to our sensors? Corvash demanded. Unknown, sir, his sensor chief reported. We are detecting massive electromagnetic pulses throughout the fleet. Source appears to be the advancing human vessels. On the main screen, brilliant flashes of light began erupting between the fleets. The Kithrin targeting systems, which had been locked onto human ships, suddenly lost their locks. Nuclear detonations, the sensor chief announced. The humans are detonating nuclear devices in space. Corvash stared at the screen in disbelief. They are using nuclear weapons as... What? Shields? His tactical officer was frantically trying to restore sensor contact. The electromagnetic interference is overwhelming our targeting systems, sir. We cannot maintain weapon locks through this radiation field. Through the chaos of nuclear fire and electromagnetic storms, the human ships emerged like ghosts. They were much closer than they should have been, and they were firing, but not with energy weapons or missiles. The humans were using kinetic cannons, firing solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. The Kithran shields, designed to deflect sophisticated energy weapons, barely slowed down chunks of metal traveling at significant fractions of light speed. The first Kithran destroyer took a direct hit from a human kinetic round. The metal slug punched through the shield like it was not there, tore through the hull, and emerged from the other side trailing debris and atmosphere. Impossible, breathed Corvash. Our shields are rated for planetary siege weapons. His engineering officer was checking damage reports. Sir, kinetic weapons at those velocities carry enormous kinetic energy. Our shields are not designed to stop solid projectiles moving that fast. More flashes appeared on the screen. But these were different, larger, brighter, coming from the direction of the asteroid belt. Admiral, his sensor chief called out, his voice tight with fear. We have a problem. A very big problem. What now? Corvash snarled. The human ships that retreated to the outer system. They were not retreating, sir. They were positioning themselves around the asteroid belt. And they are moving asteroids. Corvash looked at his tactical display. Icons representing asteroids were accelerating away from the belt, heading directly toward his fleet. Not small rocks, but massive chunks of stone and metal, some larger than his destroyers. How fast are they moving? He asked. The sensor chief checked his readings twice before answering. Approximately 15% of light speed, sir. And accelerating. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. An asteroid traveling at 15% of light speed was not a rock. It was a planet killer. How many asteroids are they throwing at us? Corvash asked quietly. Current count is 47, sir. And more are being accelerated every few minutes. Corvash stared at the display, watching death approach his fleet in the form of weaponized celestial bodies. The humans had not just broken the rules of civilized warfare. They had rewritten them entirely. All ships, he ordered, his voice hollow. Evasive maneuvers. Emergency scatter formation. But even as he gave the order, Corvash knew it was too late. His fleet was designed for ship-to-ship combat, not for dodging relativistic asteroids. The humans had turned the entire solar system into a weapon, and Admiral Chun was just getting started. The first asteroid struck the Kithran heavy cruiser Bonecrusher 6 minutes after Admiral Chun activated Phoenix Protocol. The ship's captain had tried to evade, but 15% of light speed gave him no time to react. The asteroid, roughly the size of a city block, hit the cruiser's port side. There was no explosion. No dramatic fireball. The kinetic energy simply converted the Bonecrusher and the asteroid into an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. Where a moment before there had been a proud warship with 800 crew members, now there was only glowing gas dispersing into space. Admiral Corvash watched the destruction from his flagship's bridge and felt something he had never experienced before in battle. Fear. Evasive pattern 7, he ordered. All ships scatter formation. But his fleet had been designed for organized combat, not for running from rocks moving at impossible speeds. The Kithran formation, which had been their strength, now became a weakness. Ships crashed into each other trying to avoid the incoming asteroids. Sir, his tactical officer reported, voice cracking with stress. The human ships are coordinating the asteroid strikes with their kinetic weapon attacks. They are herding us into the asteroid paths. Corvash looked at his tactical display with growing horror. The humans were not just throwing rocks. They were using their ships to drive the Kithran fleet into specific areas where the asteroids would hit. It was like watching a pack of wolves drive prey into a trap. How are they coordinating so precisely? He demanded that his communication officer had been monitoring human transmissions. Sir, they are using extremely tight beam communications. Laser links between ships. Very difficult to jam or intercept. Another asteroid found its target. The destroyer Swift Death tried to use its main engines to escape, but the asteroid caught it in the aft section. The ship broke in half, both pieces spinning away into the dark. Admiral, his strategic advisor said quietly, "We need to consider withdrawal." Withdrawal? Corvash roared. "We outnumber them 4-1. Numbers do not matter if we cannot effectively engage them," the advisor replied. "Our energy weapons are useless at current ranges due to electromagnetic interference. Their kinetic weapons are penetrating our shields, and they have unlimited ammunition in the form of asteroids." On the main screen, another human tactic became clear. The ships that had dived below the orbital plane were not hiding. They were flanking. They emerged from below the Kithran fleet and began firing kinetic rounds into the undersides of ships where the armor was thinnest. "Shield configuration Delta," Corvash ordered. "Reinforce lower hull protection." "Sir," his engineering officer reported, "shield reconfiguration will take 4 minutes. The human attack pattern changes every 30 seconds. That was the moment Corvash began to understand what they were really fighting. These humans did not think like civilized beings. They did not follow the accepted rules of warfare. They adapted constantly, like wild animals hunting. "Communication from the planet killer Absolute Victory," his communication officer reported. "They are requesting permission to use maximum yield weapons against the human homeworld." Corvash considered it. One planet killer could reduce Earth to molten rock. The humans would have to stop their attack to protect their world. "Granted," he said. "Target Earth, maximum yield." The Absolute Victory began charging its main weapon, a directed energy cannon capable of cracking continental plates. But as the weapon powered up, 3 human ships converged on the planet killer from different directions. What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries. The human ships did not try to destroy the Absolute Victory with conventional weapons. Instead, they rammed it, not suicide attacks. Ramming with empty ships controlled by computer. The first ship struck the planet killer's weapon array, destroying the main cannon. The second ship hit the bridge, killing the command crew. The third ship penetrated the reactor compartment. The Absolute Victory died not from enemy fire, but from deliberate collision with unmanned vessels. The humans had just sacrificed 3 ships to eliminate one target, and they had done it with precision that spoke of detailed planning. "Sir," his intelligence officer said, voice barely above a whisper, "I do not think these are desperate tactics. I think this is how they fight." Corvash studied the tactical display with new eyes. The chaotic human formations were not chaotic at all. They were fluid, adaptive, designed to take advantage of any opportunity. The humans fought like their own element, fire. Fire did not follow rules. Fire adapted to whatever it found. Fire consumed everything and left nothing but ash. "Sir, asteroid impact in 20 seconds, his sensor chief announced. Corvash looked at the main screen. Another asteroid, this one the size of a mountain, was bearing down on his flagship. The devastating claw was already at maximum acceleration, but it was not enough. "All hands, brace for impact," he ordered. The asteroid struck the flagship's starboard side. The devastating claw's shields held for nearly 3 seconds before collapsing. The ship's hull cracked along its entire length. Atmosphere rushed out through a dozen breaches. The lights went out as the main reactor, SC ragged dot in the darkness of the bridge, lit only by emergency power. Corvash finally understood what his species had awakened. These humans were not a civilized species playing at war. They were war itself, refined by millions of years of evolution, on a world that had tried to kill them every single day. "Damage report," he called out. "Main engines offline." His engineering officer reported from somewhere in the dark. "Weapon systems destroyed. Life support functioning on backup power only. Fleet status: 67 ships lost, sir. 43 damaged and withdrawing. The remaining vessels are scattered across the system." In 4 hours, the mighty Kitharan 7th Fleet had been reduced to a collection of broken ships fleeing for their lives. They had not destroyed a single human vessel. "Sir," his communication officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the human admiral." "Put it through," Korvash said. Admiral Chun's voice filled the darkened bridge. "Admiral Korvash, you have one opportunity to leave this system with the ships you have left. You will carry a message to your hegemony. You will tell them that humanity remembers every attack on our colonies, every captured civilian, every burned settlement." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was cold as space itself. "Tell them we know where you live. Tell them we know where all of you live. Tell them that if they want to see what fire really means, they are welcome to come back." Korvash looked around his ruined bridge. His crew stared at him with eyes full of fear and defeat. The humans had not just beaten them. They had made it look easy. "Signal the fleet," he said quietly. "General retreat. Maximum acceleration out of the system." As the remaining Kitharan ships limped toward the hyperspace jump point, Korvash thought about the message he would have to carry home. He thought about explaining to the hegemony how an inferior force had destroyed them without breaking a sweat. Most of all, he thought about Admiral Chun's final words. The humans knew where they lived, and something in her voice suggested they were already planning a visit. Behind them, Earth continued its peaceful orbit around its star. The human fleet had returned to normal patrol patterns as if nothing had happened. As if reducing the galaxy's most feared military force to scrap metal was just another day's work. The Kitharan had learned something new about humanity. They were not just capable of violence. Violence was their natural state. Peace was something they chose, not something they were forced into by weakness, and they had just chosen to stop being peaceful. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began 18 hours after the last Kitharan ship fled the Sol System. Representatives arrived at Nexus Prime with faces full of shock and confusion. The impossible had happened. The humans had won. Zethkari stood at the speaker's podium, but his usual confidence was gone. His forehands shook as he activated the holographic display. "Fellow council members, we must discuss the events in human space." The display showed the aftermath of the battle. Debris fields where Kitharan ships had been. Asteroids still drifting on trajectories that would take them out of the solar system. And the human fleet intact and apparently undamaged, returning to normal patrol routes. The Kitharan 7th Fleet engaged human forces at approximately 1400 hours. Galactic Standard Time, Zethkari began. The engagement lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes. He paused, struggling to find words for what had happened. The Kitharan fleet consisted of 200 vessels, including 3 Planet Killer-class ships. The human force numbered 43 vessels, none larger than heavy cruiser classification. Another pause. At the end of the engagement, the Kitharan had lost 133 ships. Human losses were 0. A murmur went through the council chamber. Several representatives checked their personal displays, certain they had heard wrong. The delegate from the research union spoke first. 0 casualties? That cannot be correct. The mathematics do not support such an outcome. The mathematics are correct, Zethkari replied grimly. We have confirmed reports from multiple sources, including surviving Kitharan vessels. The Vorthan war commander leaned forward his scarred hide reflecting the display lights. How? How did a numerically inferior force achieve such a result? Zefkari touched his controls, and the display changed to show tactical recordings from the battle. The council watched in silence as human ships disappeared into nuclear fire, only to emerge at point-blank range with their primitive kinetic weapons. Phase 1, Zefkari narrated. The humans used nuclear devices as defensive screens. The electromagnetic interference blinded Kitharin, targeting systems while allowing human ships to close. Range. The display showed asteroids accelerating from the belt toward the Kitharin fleet. Phase 2. The humans weaponized asteroids, accelerating them to 15% of light speed using methods we do not yet understand. The recording continued, showing the systematic destruction of the Kitharin fleet. Phase 3. Coordinated attacks using kinetic weapons and ramming techniques. The humans sacrificed unmanned vessels to eliminate specific targets. The ethereal collective's harmonics filled the chamber, their mental voice tinged with something that might have been fear. This is not warfare. This is something else. Something we do not have words for. The delegate from the peaceful worlds was studying her personal display with growing alarm. These tactics, they violate every principle of civilized combat. Using nuclear weapons as cover, throwing asteroids at enemies, deliberate ramming attacks. But they worked, the war commander said quietly. Every rule they broke for a reason. Every violation of civilized warfare gave them an advantage. Zefkari nodded reluctantly. Our military analysts have reviewed the battle recordings. Human tactics show a level of adaptability and innovation that we did not expect. He changed the display again, showing a breakdown of human ship movements throughout the battle. Notice how their formations constantly shift. No two human ships follow the same attack pattern. They adapt to changing conditions in real time. Our computers cannot predict their movements because there is no pattern to predict. The representative from the trading consortium spoke through his mechanical voice synthesizer. What of their technology? We assessed their capabilities as primitive. That assessment was... Zefkari searched for the right word. Incomplete. Yes, their technology appears crude compared to our standards. But it is optimized for efficiency and reliability rather than sophistication. The display showed close-up recordings of human weapons hitting Kitharin. Ships, their kinetic weapons. Our simple metal slugs accelerated to high velocity. Nothing complicated. But at the speeds they achieve, complexity is unnecessary. Kinetic energy becomes the weapon. And the asteroids? Asked the Lumina representative. We believe they use a combination of fusion rockets and gravity manipulation to accelerate the asteroids. Again, simple technology applied in ways we had not considered. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Everything they thought they knew about human capabilities had been wrong. The delegate from the Builders Guild spoke hesitantly. If we misjudged their military potential so completely, what else might we have missed? Zefkari brought up a new display showing human space before and after the battle. This is concerning. Intelligence reports suggest that every human colony, no matter how small, is now fortifying. They are not building defensive installations. They are building weapons factories. How many humans are there? Ask someone. Approximately 12 billion across 17 systems, Zefkari replied. But that number is growing rapidly. Their population expansion rate is unlike anything we have seen in civilized species. The war commander was studying the tactical analysis with professional interest. Their fleet organization is also unusual. Small, independent squadrons rather than large formations. Each squadron seems capable of operating alone for extended periods. The real warfare, the research union delegate said suddenly. That is what this is. We were prepared for conventional fleet engagement. They gave us something we had no doctrine for handling. The ethereal collective's harmonics changed tone. We must consider the possibility that we fundamentally misunderstood this species. Their apparent primitiveness may be adaptation, not limitation. Zeth Kari activated a new display showing Admiral Chan's final message to Admiral Korvash. The human woman's voice filled the chamber. Tell them we know where you live. This message was broadcast on all frequencies, Zeth Kari said. Every species in the galaxy heard it. The humans were not just speaking to the Kithron. They were speaking to all of us. The implications hung in the air like a threat. The humans had not just defeated a superior force. They had announced their arrival as a major power. What do they want? Asked the Peaceful World's delegate. We sent Ambassador Park a request for clarification, Zeth Kari replied. Her response was brief. He activated the message display. Ambassador Park appeared as a hologram, her face calm but her eyes hard as steel. The United Earth Government requests full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges thereof. We also request recognition of our territorial claims and an end to all restrictions on human technology access. The hologram paused, then continued. We would prefer to achieve these goals through negotiation. Recent events have demonstrated that we have other options available. The message ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Is that a threat? Asked the Lumina representative. It is a fact, the war commander replied. They have demonstrated capability to project force anywhere in the galaxy. If they choose to use that capability, he did not need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood. Zeth Kari looked around the chamber. The same representatives who had laughed at humanity 3 years ago now sat in worried silence. The Dominion moves to grant immediate full membership to the human species, he said formally. All in favor? The vote was unanimous. Faster than any decision in Galactic Council history. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, the ethereal collective's harmonics lingered in the air one final time. We wanted them to prove they belonged in our civilization. Instead, they have proven that our civilization must adapt to include them. Ambassador Park received the news in her office on Nexus Prime. Full membership. Full rights. Immediate technology sharing agreements. Everything humanity had been denied was now offered freely. She thought about Captain Santos, still helping rebuild the colonies that had been destroyed. She thought about Admiral Chun, probably already planning humanity's next moves. She thought about all the people who had died while the council debated whether humans deserved to defend themselves. Her response to the council's offer was simple. Accepted. But privately, she added a note to her personal log. They gave us full membership because they are afraid of us now. Fear is not respect. But it is a beginning. In human space, the work continued. New ships were under construction. New weapons were being tested. New plans were being made. The galaxy had laughed at humanity. Now it watched humanity with very different emotions. The children who played with fire had grown up to become masters of it. And fire, as everyone now knew, could spread very quickly.